Is there any update you can give us?
No.
So full commitment to Red Bull 2020?
I said there's nothing to say. So,
okay.
He might be leaving Red Bull. Max keeps saying that, he's not gonna race in Formula 1 like every other Tuesday, so it's not exactly a surprise. So when he got asked this question,
is there any update you can give us?
no.
It didn't exactly surprise me when he said, that he has nothing new to say. This wouldn't be the first time. And, media always keeps bothering him about these questions. And, rightfully so. He's pretty big name in Formula 1. Right after that question, he got asked another question, what about the speculations, which is mostly the same question, which again, he responded with.
And what do you make of the speculation?
Nothing.
And again, it's pretty much the same response. So that alone would not make me think that he is leaving Formula 1 or even Red Bull Racing. And when he gets asked about any kind of dates...
And do you have a date in mind?
No, there's nothing to say.
Obviously, that's exactly what Max is gonna respond with. Again, nothing really surprising just yet, right? But what did make me feel like I think he actually might leave Red Bull was this.
So full commitment to Red Bull 2020?
I said there's nothing to say. So...
Okay.
Because, like I was saying, he's always saying, oh, I'm about to leave Formula 1. If something doesn't change, I leave Formula 1. I don't like the car, I'm gonna leave the Formula 1. This isn't anything new. He keep repeating himself saying, I'm not gonna race until my 50s and stuff like that. So I'm sure he's gonna leave at somewhat reasonably close future. When exactly that is, I don't know. But one thing he always kept saying, I have no plans for the future, whether I'm gonna be in Formula 1, next year or year after that. But what he always said, for now I'm contracted to Red Bull Racing and I'm a Red Bull Racing driver, so that's where I'm gonna be. Or he would just simply respond, well, I drive for Red Bull. But this time he was like, I have no plans. I don't know. Are you gonna be committed to Red Bull Racing? And he just says, I got nothing to say. That kind of response, from a driver who's still under contract, and that contract doesn't end this year. It ends in 2028. Whenever you have that kind of contract with that kind of name and that name just says, what? Maybe I won't race for you. Can you imagine just how annoyed must be the Red Bull Racing shareholders, team members, team principal, and everybody involved in that? I mean, your star racing driver just outright refuses to say that he's gonna race for you next year. And last week in Silverstone, from what I hear, after the qualifying, he wanted to change pretty much everything, including the engine, because he wasn't happy. And Laura Mekis, from what I hear, just said, actually, we're not gonna do that. You go as is. And he was very unhappy about it. And then in the race, he crashed. I believe it was because of the rear wing. He lost the traction, and rightfully so. He was very pissed off about it. But the surprising part to me is, like I said, just him outright refusing to say that he's gonna drive for Red Bull, which, whenever you have a contract, that's kind of what you're supposed to do, right? But look, let's say Max doesn't drive for Red Bull next year. What are his options, right? I don't think he can go to Ferrari because Charles just got a big new contract. Lewis is actually doing pretty good right now. I don't see a reason to replace Lewis with Max, even though maybe long-term looking, but it's even that way, it's kind of hard to look long-term because Max is always saying he's not gonna be there forever. So technically maybe Max is younger and has more years in Formula 1, and I would say Max is just as good as driver as Lewis, if not better at times. You can easily, compare one to another. They had their whole battle in 2021, and I don't think Ferrari is replacing either of them. Also think if Lewis by some miracle, some way gets his 8th with Ferrari, that would be just absolutely insane story, and Ferrari would absolutely be down for it. I could see him going to Mercedes just simply because George is not really performing that well right now. I mean, he's getting beat by Kimi, and this is Kimi's only second year in Formula 1, and we all know how much Toto loves Max and how he lost him. So I could see that happening, even though I heard some speculations that, Max offered to lower his salary to get a seat in Mercedes, but Toto Wolff said that, there's no meat to the rumors. But I think if it really came to it, I think Toto would make it work. I think he would. So I could see that, and I think that would be probably the most realistic scenario. I could also see him going to McLaren, but that would mean they they would have to get rid of Piastri or Lando, and obviously they're not gonna get rid of Lando. Lando is their boy, their star boy, their world champion. But for Piastri, I think they could. I think they could make some sort of a swap. I could see that. I could definitely see that. Is it likely? I don't know. I don't think so. I think the realistic scenario is Max gets some sort of a better deal at the Red Bull. There's some rumors that he wants to get a stake in VCarb. I could potentially see that working. You know, he gets some shares in VCarb. Now he has a stake in an actual Formula 1 team. Maybe, you know, he has a bigger word. Maybe he can bring some people he wants into VCarb. I could see that working, and that's probably the most likely scenario, that maybe he's trying to get, you know, better terms, maybe a stake in VCarb and a bigger word in Red Bull Racing, in a sense that if he says something, it must go. And even though usually that's the way it is, but from last weekend what we can see is that it isn't always the case. Max sometimes isn't bigger than the team, and team can't say no to him, and maybe that wasn't the right decision last weekend, but that's what happened. So is Max leaving Red Bull? I think there's a chance. Honestly, I think for the first time I heard Max and I was like, I could see that happening. And even in his voice, I could see that happening. But let me know, what do you think? Is he going to leave Red Bull? And where he's going to leave, if he is to leave the Red Bull? In any case, if you enjoyed this little video, be sure to subscribe for more Formula 1 content, and I'll see you guys in the qualifyings and in the race. Take care. Bye bye.